being surrounded by so many babies who are so stressed, we all probably just co-regulated.
We were definitely co-regulating, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the caregivers too, because they were also probably stressed and emotional during that time. I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
Hello, and welcome to the Well-Adjusted Chiropractor Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Broadman, and I am a chiropractic student specializing in neurologically focused care for pediatrics and families. We talk all things nervous system and chiropractic to family health and personal growth. I am so excited you're here. Let's get started. All right, for this episode, this is for families who are considering adoption or already have adopted or just curious on what the adoption process is like, especially for bonding with your baby. This one is for you. So we have our first guest in the house, KP Harrington.
Hi.
Sorry, I am butchering your name already.
No, you're
Must
good.
be the nerves. Go ahead, introduce yourself, like who you are, what brought you to this.
So my name is Katie Pond Harrington, but I go by KP, and I'm really excited about this because Sarah and I actually met at PwC. I picked up a job as a scan tech, and Sarah is precepting there right now in her ninth trimester, and she's going to be graduating soon.
I'm so excited.
I know, I can't wait. But I don't know, we just kind of clicked when we kind of just started hanging out more, and the more I saw you. And one of the funny things was like, you know, when you're adopted, as we both are, you kind of have a sense, you know, there's like something that's there. And I remember looking at Sarah and I added her on Instagram and I was like, I'm not going to be a creep, but like, I need to see a picture of her parents, and pretty much all.
Are they Chinese or white?
Right, exactly. So I was like, okay, like, let's just like look and see. And I'm pretty sure I saw her parents were white.
They are.
So then the next day, what I did, I was just chatting and I planted a seed and I was like, oh, so like a funny story about my dad, this like poor 6'2" guy did this. And Sarah, what did you say?
Well, I was like, dang, that's really tall for an Asian guy, because like Asians don't get that tall.
Right. And I kind of looked at her and was like, my dad's white.
And I'm like, same.
That's how we figured out we were adopted.
Yeah. So we, again, like, the bonding process of just in general adoptees, there's just something really unique about sharing that experience with other people. And like, to back up, even the PX experience, where we are in our chiropractic journeys of learning about neurologically focused chiropractic and having that drive to help families, help kids especially. And I think through our experiences, we've got that extra personal story that'll kind of help connect with parents, especially if they are considering adopting, and then what that process looks like, especially the bonding process, as all parents that are considering adopting really kind of look for. Okay, so I guess let's just not jump too far ahead, maybe talking about our adopting stories, and then what we kind of want to introduce is co-regulation, talking about that, the nervous system, and the things that we've kind of seen along the way with adoption and just development.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Cool. Do you want to start first?
Sure. My adoption story?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So I know with my parents got married and then they tried for 10 years to have a baby. And unfortunately, like, things didn't pan out for them with natural conception. And then they had 2 failed in-state adoptions. And I know my mom, she was reading in the newspaper how in China there was like this one-child policy, and there was a lot of girls that needed to be adopted. So my mom was like, I think this is our calling. I think this is that our baby's going to be there. So I came to the States in December 1996.
So how old were you?
I was 8 months. I was just a wee baby. And it's kind of crazy because when I was telling Sarah the story earlier, it is kind of wild, all the developmental delays. And I was like, but that's when we started talking about it though. And we're like, I wonder if there's like a link to that with our birth mothers and like the lack of co-regulation from our birth moms. And then, I don't know, we just started talking about it and dug deeper into it.
Yeah. One thing that the pediatric experience training that we've done through chiropractic school is, like, KP's also a chiropractic student. Hey. What tri are you in?
I'm in 6th tri right now.
6th tri. And she's also the Club PX president of National College of Chiropractic. And I'm the Club PX president of Club PX St. Louis. So it's like, there's another thing we had in common. But one thing that we've been learning along our journey is how much prenatal stress really affects the developmental process of
Hmm.
babies. And when KP had mentioned the one child policy, it just made both of us stop and think as we're talking about this is how dang stressful could it be for like I could not imagine
Yeah.
those Chinese moms going through that process of stressing over you're not going to be able to keep this child.
I know. I always flash back thinking about that because I nannied for for this girl. She was 1 month old and the smallest kid I've ever nannied in my life. But I remember holding her, and the parents were gone at this point. But like I started tearing up because I really felt so emotional just thinking how upsetting and sad our birth mothers probably felt during this time. And I know, like, as an adoptee, it is very polarizing how people feel about being adopted. And I think people have their
Hmm.
own experience of their own thoughts of this time being adopted, especially in China. But I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, like this must have been so hard for the mom. This must
Couldn't
have been so
imagine.
hard. Like this little girl, like, because with my story, I was found allegedly, and I'll speak on the allegedly in a second. I was allegedly found in front of a police station in a bag at 2 weeks old. So, like, probably similar to you, I don't
Yeah.
actually know my birth date.
Yep.
So, like, they
Hmm.
guesstimated I was
They
2 weeks
guesstimated.
old.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, I just can't imagine that. So, because then do you know any history of like how you were born or not born, but like how you were like where were you found?
I was actually found in China.
You were made in China
I
technically.
was 2002.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Not that I don't know any information on how pregnancy was, obviously, birth was, but
Mm,
I know from kind of doing research into this with China's one child policy, a lot of the times pregnancies were kept secret,
mm-hmm.
meaning then births were a secret.
Mm-hmm.
So that birth could have either been really stressful, obviously very stressful, but also we don't know whether or not it was fast, if there was there we could probably at least take out that we didn't have any C-sections
Yeah.
or inductions, I want to say,
Probably
so we can
not.
swipe those off the list.
Yeah.
We could have had forceps in the form of someone manually
Mm-hmm.
pulling on the neck
Mm-hmm.
to help us get into this world, but I don't know anything on that regard. But I was found on a street. I swear I texted my mom. I keep forgetting. Can you remember what she said? Where
So you were found,
I'm
okay, well, we were both found in Anhui province.
yes,
So I
Anhui
do, yeah.
province.
And
Yes,
I know my city was Bangbu, and then I think yours was Tongling.
Tongling. There we go.
Yeah, I think it was
Yes,
Tongling.
I've been told this so many times, but this okay. To fast forward, this just goes to show how beautiful our adoptions ended up because this is just history for me.
Hmm.
Like, I don't remember it because well, I don't know how old I was when I was found,
Right.
but by the time you go through the orphanage and that experience, I was adopted at 11 months.
Yeah.
So I don't remember those previous experiences.
I totally agree with that. And I think for some history of the one child policy, if anyone like is kind of like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about? Essentially, the one child policy was enacted in 1980, and China's population was growing out of control. So the government was kind of like, hey, you know what? We're only gonna like make sure it's only each family has one child. But that would cause a lot of problems for a lot of farmers and like people in like rural countries because essentially, and also in Chinese culture, the women go to the husband's families. So a lot of these families were like, well, if I have a daughter, like I'm just going to be raising this kid for no reason for 20 years and they just leave me and I'm left alone. So just thinking about the stress that our birth mothers probably had of like they're scared about having a girl, they're scared about like what are they going to do once we're
Mm-hmm.
born, you know?
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know, there's a great documentary called One Child Nation on Amazon on Prime. You should definitely listen to it. That's where I got a lot of information about the one child policy. And when I said allegedly earlier, there's like a whole like scheme of like things that
Mm-hmm.
happened like with the police and then the orphanages and then like
Mm-hmm.
the people coming from America to adopt the babies.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother tangent though. But
Yeah.
just even listening to some of the stories that the doctors during that time period, so it stopped. So the one child policy was from 1980, and then it just recently said, oh, into
2016.
2016, you can have two children. But they were interviewing the doctors during that time, and they were like, oh, so the one doctor was like, I gave about 50,000 to 60,000 sterilizations or abortions during that time period. And I remember so vividly in the documentary, like listening, this woman was like, doctors were like, women were running away from these medical
Yeah.
camps trying to escape because they didn't want to lose their pregnancy. So again, I get emotional just thinking about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it sucks.
It does.
Yeah, it must have been like so hard for moms, like, because I don't know, we don't know who our moms are, but I like to think that maybe our moms wanted to keep us,
Yeah.
but if the government wouldn't allow it,
Mm-hmm.
and also just culturally, it's a problem. And even today, though, there's no girls our age there, so these boys are just single over there.
Yeah. Well, they found out soon enough. But
Exactly.
yeah. And the reason why we're talking so much with prenatal stress and we're going back to the start of things is because, again, what we've been learning through our chiropractic journey is how much prenatal stress really affects a child's development. To kind of give some context, when mom is stressed during birth, cortisol, which is that stress steroid hormone, it can travel through the placenta and get into baby's nervous system. And what does that mean? Well, we know through development, baby is like pretty resilient. We are born with a good nervous system, a full working body. However, when we are trying to develop and we develop in the presence of stress, that oftentimes trains baby, that developing beautiful baby, into knowing only stress because it should be a relaxing time. It should be a lovely time to, for mom to experience this bonding and that connection with baby. But yet, if mom is stressed, baby is going to be stressed. And when baby is born into already a stressed world, being stressed, it starts a cascade of events that lead to we can even start from the beginning, latching issues, colic, eating, sleeping, pooping
Allergies.
issues, allergies, ear infections, which then could later travel down to ADHD, ADD, sensory
SPD,
processing.
yep.
Yep. And we'll talk about that eventually too. But we're just kind of recognizing that prenatal stress there in China, it's a real thing, and the big thing with the one child policy that induces a big number of it.
Right. And I gotta ask, when you were adopted, what did your parents notice about you that, like, did they notice if you were, like, delayed in your milestones?
yeah.
Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So one thing with the orphanages there in China is there are a lot of you there and you only have so many caregivers. So that means you are not getting that one-on-one time with the supposed caregiver, and even in that is the role of a parent in birth families. But for us, we did not get that individual caregiver, so that naturally led us to not being integrated into gravity, by which means we're not sitting up, we're not walking, we're not crawling, and we're not reaching those like gross motor skills first and then fine motor skills. But one thing that they had noticed with me is I was not crawling or walking at the age of 11 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also wasn't speaking either. And we can argue that there was a language barrier. So
sure.
in that regards, we can't fully count that. But motor wise, I was not crawling, was not walking, was not on solid foods. So that's where I was.
Yeah, that's very similar with me because my mom, I actually called her recently and we chatted about this, but she said at 8 months old, I couldn't sit up. I couldn't hold my head. She always had to hold my hand. I remember seeing a home video where she's talking to the Chinese government officials adopting me, and she's literally like holding my head up because like I kept like falling back. Another thing for me too is that I had bronchitis, and then I also had eczema in my ears. And the Chinese doctor, oh my God, the Chinese doctor told my mom, she was like, this is a very sickly child. And my mom goes, no, that's not my kid. No, no, no.
She's
But-
resilient.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's what's super cool about it though, because then my mom, like being the health nut that she is, she brought me to a chiropractor when I was a baby.
Heck yeah.
And she brought me to a chiropractor. She brought me to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor in Chicago, and That guy pretty much was like, oh, give her sweet potato and give her chicken and give her vegetables, no fruit for the first year. Honestly, I don't know the science behind that, but like I thought that was very interesting. And she followed it to a T. And I like to think I'm a pretty healthy person, all thanks
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Catherine. So thanks, Mom.
yeah. There we go.
But also, how babies co-regulate with the person they're attached to, but
Mm,
how they also self-soothe. Because the first night my parents got me, all the babies, so you're kind of adopted with a group,
mm-hmm.
and then the
Travel
group,
groups.
yeah, travel
Shout out
groups.
to all of our travel
Hey,
groups.
number 7. That was our number. But but basically with that, I think my mom was like talking to all the other moms. They're like, "Did your baby do this? Did your baby do this?"
Mm.
And we all rocked ourselves to sleep. Like we all like we were like swaddled and we literally were trained to rock ourselves to sleep or like move our heads back to back and forth to like rock ourselves to sleep essentially. And but it just goes to show with the lack of co-regulation, like my mom said also that like maybe I did have a really good connection with one lady because apparently she was crying really hard, I was crying really hard, my mom was crying, everyone was crying that night. But pretty much though, I don't know, maybe you can co-regulate with someone, but it is interesting because with co-regulation, there's the study that we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
how it's like if you're in the same household,
Yeah,
like
the
all
household
your heart rate
people.
variability is all going to be the same
Yeah.
or roughly the same. So I am actually just thinking of this, being surrounded by so many babies who are so stressed, we all probably just
We were
co-regulated.
definitely co-regulating. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe the caregivers too, because they were also probably stressed and emotional during that time. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, I
It's
really just
like
thought of
a
that.
yeah, and it goes to it's in that same concept of you are who you hang around.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have found is to kind of back up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
co-regulation by definition is that that bonding in which when babies are born, they're not born with that know-how of what to do
Mm-hmm.
because in that time their nervous systems are learning off from their caregiver
Mm-hmm.
or their parents. It should be the parents,
Yes.
but that's why they're always pushing on like skin on skin, let baby nurse, let because
Mm-hmm.
they want that co-regulation because baby's going to come out, baby's going to be a little bit distraught because oh my gosh, this is a whole brand new world. Sympathetics, to get just a little bit in the science.
I'm ready. I'm
Yeah,
here for
okay.
it. Sarah's our nerd. We're here
I
for
love
it.
when baby is born, they have that activation of that stress side of the nervous system. That kind of gets them out because when they come out, you want to kind of exclude the mucus, all the fluids that baby tends to kind of accumulate while coming out. But the baby is supposed to kind of suppress and go into that parasympathetic, so that rest and digest side of the nervous
Mm-hmm.
system. And that is through co-regulation. And that's when baby is handed off to mom. Mom's heart rate slows down, baby's heart rate slows down.
Mm-hmm.
Baby is given over to dad. Dad takes deep breaths, baby takes deep breaths. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that soothing aspect of it. Um, during with the way the orphanage is set up, we don't have that. So the rocking to sleep makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing with the orphanage, what I was mentioning probably before is you're laid in those cribs. There are so many babies, you're laid into cribs, and a lot of the times there's like two babies per crib.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have a lot of room to
Yeah.
move around. And one thing is I ended up with a dent in my my head.
Oh no.
So cranial wise, that could either be a reflection of how birth was, but it also could be a reflection on how I was laying on the crib, like in the crib. Like I was
Right.
not played with. I was not. They weren't working with me on my motor milestones. And if you're laying down all the time, the head's gonna become misshapen.
Right.
My sister was also adopted from China. And she was, I forget how old she was when she
Okay.
was adopted, maybe 19 months. That kind of sounds right. And anyway, with her, she was laying in the crib for so long, she had a flat spot on her head.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
But one thing that was different with her is she actually did walk and crawl.
Oh, that is
Sorry,
interesting.
crawl and walk. That's
Oh, okay,
that's
yeah.
the right order.
It's always important for baby to crawl first.
Yeah, facts.
Hills
Thanks,
I will
CD.
die on.
Yeah.
Let your baby crawl
and
first.
the CDC also took that away for
I
the
I
milestone.
know, that's crazy.
My gosh, the cross crawl pattern.
It helps with lumbar. Okay, we're getting off topic,
Yeah,
but it
we are.
does help with your lumbar
It
curvature
does. It
because your
does.
belly's gonna naturally hang. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're getting off topic.
We are. Okay, chiropractic school.
Yes.
And anyway, one thing that we've found with being in the orphanages and stuff like that, you've got that high stress. And in babies, what that'll do is activate what's called the HPA axis. I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little sciencey. I love it. But within our system, our nervous system, we've got this kind of like relay communication center. First, starting off, nervous system tells the hypothalamus in the brain what to do. That'll send signals down to the pituitary, and then it'll send signals down into the adrenals. What that'll do over time is just create this endless loop of chronic neurological stress in these babies. And studies have found the chronic neurological stress will affect certain areas in the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of like your decision making, the amygdala, which is in charge of like your emotions, the emotional intelligence, stuff like that. And then there's the hippocampus in the brain that's responsible for communicating those short-term memories to long-term memories, and then also just learning things in general. When knowing this and when I was actually learning this in chiropractic school, it kind of made sense as to why we were developmentally delayed. Not just because of the lack of interventions, but we were just put under so much stress as like while we were in utero, and then once we were born, that stress continued. So it made sense that we had those developmental delays in the
Mm-hmm.
very end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you. Well, I know you don't have any eye conditions, but I was born with a lazy eye, so strabismus in my left eye. And one thing that I was doing when it came to like researching all this is I found out that prenatal stress is also linked to strabismus in children. Because if you think about it, like when I explained prenatal stress earlier with cortisol, when cortisol is high, mom's stressed, everything becomes very tense. And when things become tense, there's a lack of blood flow, so that placental health. And there's also decreased oxygen saturation in that communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to say hypoxic injuries, but hypoxic conditions. And we know that the brainstem is in charge of respiration and then bringing oxygen in and communicating to all of ourselves. What also branches from the brainstem are the cranial nerves, to the eyes. So 3, 4, 6,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have, I want to say like stressful conditions, decreased blood flow, decreased oxygen, you're not going to develop fully to the healthiest of what it could be, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of linked that back to, what had happened with the prenatal stress, one child policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And like I remember reading on a PowerPoint slide that the amount of first trimester stress mom has, and even if we were able to like slap on an HRV monitor, or like get their HRV scans, and essentially you want mom's heart rate to be more up and down, up and down. You want it higher. The word
What
is higher.
variability?
Yeah, you want variability
Yeah.
because it's gonna help the baby then like come out and be more resilient to change, because mom was like pretty resilient to change. But and which is like, so it's kind of an oxymoron, because you were thinking, oh, it's like their heart rate is up and down so much, does that mean they're so stressed? But it's like, no, like you want it to hit different points so mom is able
Sure.
to protect herself and kind of be like aware of her surroundings and be able to adapt so fast.
Yeah,
And that kind of spreads onto baby.
it
But whereas
does.
if mom has a low heart rate variability and she's not adapting to all her changes like quickly, baby will also not be as adaptable to change
Mm-hmm.
either. So this is all
Yeah.
happening within the first trimester, essentially. So that's, and like also in the first trimester, the first, I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks, like your nervous system is being developed
Nervous
then.
system develops. It's one of the very first systems to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'll go just a little bit sciencey.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys. I love my
No,
science.
and it's great.
The somatosensory system is actually the first system um,
Develop.
to develop.
Yeah.
So in that sense, somatosensory, breaking that down, touch.
Yeah.
So good input, proprioception. And that's like the biggest thing that babies need. when they are born.
Yeah.
So as soon as, baby comes out, baby goes straight on to mom's chest
Yes.
or dad's arms. Babies love to be held. They love to be, cuddled. They love to be, I mean, they just love that constant touch and closeness with
Mm-hmm.
parents. And that goes back to co-regulation. That's how they start learning to adapt into today's world.
Right, exactly. And I think what I don't know, it kind of posed the question for us being adopted because it's like
Yeah.
we didn't really get that co-regulation from our birth mom. But the thing that kind of clicked with us is like, well, I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be from birth mom. Like if we didn't get it from birth mom, we got it from our moms. We
Yes.
got it from our
Yes.
moms. And I think the
Yes.
thing I really wanted to like push forward with this is like how people would always ask my mom, like, oh, well, who's Katie Pond's real mom? And my
Mm-hmm.
mom would like cut them out and be like, Katie Pond's birth mother is in China, but I'm her real mom.
Yeah.
And it really is
It,
in that sense that nature versus nurture in a way because our moms took care of us. Our moms were there for us, like
mm-hmm.
no matter what. And they created this environment for us where,
We came from such a dysregulated, stressful situation. We were brought into such loving and
yes.
regulated homes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we were able to do that is through the power of neuroplasticity.
Yes.
And breaking it down, neuro meaning brain, plasticity meaning plastic, meaning your brain is plastic, it's malleable, it's adaptable. So, regardless of the background that we had, the brain's ability to continuously adapt, we adapted into that loving home and we eventually felt safe.
Yeah.
And guess what? We were hitting those milestones. Yeah, we had to make up for them,
Mm-hmm.
but we were able to like progress upwards from there, start solid foods, start crawling, start walking. And I mean, here we are. Here
Yeah.
we are. And we had challenges along the way. I mean, both of us have talked about struggling a little with the ADHD
Mm-hmm.
behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing besides my strabismus is I've always had like the right SI joint,
Mm-hmm.
like I guess dysfunction. I hate to use musculoskeletal terms on this, but it kind of makes me think once again like that probably resulted in maybe that delayed walking. I keep saying walking over crawling,
No, yeah.
crawling over
Yeah.
walking, missing a little bit of that window of learning the primary cross crawl pattern.
Yes. Which is also why crawling is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and going back to that, like I know like you mentioned like us having ADHD,
Hmm.
like I remember always having to be in a smaller classroom setting and I always remember like having more one-on-one time when I was in middle school. I never really understood why, but looking back, like I'm really glad my parents recognized that and they were like this she needs
Hmm.
help. She needs the extra help. So I'm very
Yeah,
thankful for that.
yeah, me too, me
Yeah.
too. Because I mean, I wasn't officially diagnosed with ADHD, but if I was the doctor that walked in and I saw myself back at that age of 4 or 5, yeah, I would say that's an ADHD kid. But in the sense, had a ADHD, and then that grew into more of that anxiety and that depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then one big thing that a lot of my friends noticed is, well, two things. Number one, the walking. So I always kind of walked in like a circumduction type
Oh,
swinging out
interesting.
motion
Yeah,
on
yeah,
my
yeah.
right SI joint. And I slouched
Okay.
bad. So I had good posture up until the age of 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've come to find again with the PX practice and studying neurologically focused chiropractic is kids that have gone through what Dr. Tony has proposed as the perfect storm. You
Mm-hmm.
guys really need to check out his work if
Mm-hmm.
you are more interested in that science aspect of it. But he talked about kids going through that cascade of prenatal stress, going into the delayed milestones, ADHD, turned into depression, and then that poor posture. That's all neurological stress from sympathetic dominance to neurological confusion and then neurological exhaustion. So by the age of 11 or 12, I had poor posture, I was a little depressed. My posture was horrible. And
Wow.
now we are able to kind of link it back to where it started in the beginning. We
Yeah.
know where it started in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
because kids don't get anxious just by themselves, or
Right.
kids don't get depressed all by themselves. Kids don't have posture just by themselves. There has to be a root cause in which we've traced all the way back from even before birth.
Right.
Prenatal stress, that's where it starts.
No, 1,000%. I totally agree with that. But So, what do you think with this podcast would be like your biggest take home message?
I'd probably say really consider adoption and then also know that your baby and your family in general is so adaptable. God designed the nervous system to be able to adapt, and these kids aren't broken. They just need loving homes. They need a regular, safe place that they can be safe 24/7 and have that co-regulation.
I agree 1,000%. And I remember my aunt saying, I really commend your parents for adopting because you just never know what you're going to get.
Hmm.
And, I kind of looked at her and I was like, I'm adopted. I think I turned out pretty okay. And I
Yeah,
did turn out okay because I had two incredible parents. I love my family. I love that
absolutely.
aunt too, of course. But like,
Yeah,
sometimes you just say stuff that, a
sure.
little out of pocket. But
Yeah,
like,
same here.
I just know that in the end, my mom would always say, if you want to be a mom, God is going to make you a mom, no matter how that happens.
Oh, that's
So I
good.
think like that definitely always stuck with her. And when she saw that newspaper clipping, she's like, all right, there's my
Mhm.
kid.
Mhm. And same with my parents.
Yeah.
They had one child, but then, they weren't able to have any more. They adopted out of the States, and that was an okay experience, but they were just so thankful to be able to adopt me and my sister. And even though I wasn't really happy about my sister being adopted because I wanted the spotlight on me,
Aw.
I am just so thankful that they took that leap of faith
Mm-hmm.
and to think about all the paperwork and all that work and
Yeah.
hassle our parents had to go through to get approved, get over to China, and be able to go through all that. It's a miracle. I
It
love it.
is. It is really crazy. And one more fun fact, Sarah and I were talking about this earlier, but
Hmm.
when our parents are doing the paperwork, like it's extensive
It is.
paperwork. It's like a 6 months to a year long process because you
Hmm.
have to get referrals, you have to get people to like vouch for you, you have to get things signed. And essentially, the orphanage, and this is where I think the orphanage did care for us in a sense, like the best they could,
Hmm.
because they will pair you with your family. Like they will pair you with your family and kind of
The
looking at my
facial features.
yeah, and like just looking at my family, I couldn't imagine anyone else
No,
raising me
no.
and help me develop who I am today.
Yeah.
So,
And then a lot of people ask me, well, do you ever want to go back to China or you want to
oh, yeah, this is
find
a
your
good topic.
actual, real mom? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, absolutely not. Like, China's just a place for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I the way that it was all done greatly is you grew up just knowing that you're in this loving home.
Yeah.
You didn't think of anything else. I even remember I was talking to one of a girl that I had just met and I said, "Oh yeah, my mom has blue eyes too." And she's like, "Really? Like what?"
Oh
I'm
my
like, "Oh
gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I'm adopted." Like
Yeah.
I because you just don't think about
No,
it
that's so
because
true.
you adapt. There's
People
neuroplasticity.
people don't get that. Like it is such like an adoption thing because I mean, people say I have the Caravet smile. So
Hmm.
it's my mom's side of the family smile.
Oh,
And but I know I remember always kind of being like stunned kind of thinking because I grew up in a very predominantly white town and then I went to a college that was predominantly white
hmm.
and I honestly forgot I was Asian sometimes. I know that
Yeah,
sounds weird,
you
but like
you do.
I say that to people and they're like, "What do you mean? Like you're clearly
You just don't
Asian."
think about it because you've adapted. The
Yes.
neuroplasticity, you've been regulated in this loving home, this
Yeah.
loving family.
Yeah. And it's also, it's not like our parents, like, of course, my parents, like, I think both of our families, like, really incorporated the Chinese culture when we were younger.
Yeah.
But then it's up to us. It is our choice for how involved we want to be with that.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that's beautiful. Like, that I'll always cherish. And I'll always cherish, like, knowing the history of what
Yeah.
happened,
Mhm.
Um, but if I would ever want to go back to China and meet my birth parents, I'm torn about it. I think it
Mm.
would be a really great experience. I think it would be a very emotional experience. And then but also there's like a part of me, like just to be shallow, is like, I'm just curious what I'm gonna look like when I'm older.
Mm.
I'm just
That's
curious
fair.
where the
That's
genetics
where
are, where the
AI comes in.
yeah, like where the genetics are coming in from. But I think that would be like the coolest part for me. But I also know the chances are really slim, but I know the technology is like upping
Sure.
its game with the blood test and everything. And there are families in China who do want to know where their babies went. And
Yeah.
like it's also crazy too, one more thing, sorry.
Yeah,
But like
no.
with transatlantic adoptions, a lot of families in China didn't know that their babies were going overseas.
Ooh.
Yeah, like I was like, "Oh, like I guess, yeah, you don't know where your child's going once it goes into an orphanage. So,
Sad.
yeah, or wherever they're found.
Yeah.
I know, but I am really glad we did this, and I'm
Yeah, me
really glad
too.
I met
Me
you at
too.
PwC.
I
I
know. I
know.
know. One adoptee to the next.
I
We
know.
we we know how to tell.
Yes, absolutely. It's just like a sense. It's
There
a
is a
sense.
sense, and
Absolutely.
and I hope for those who are listening, this actually just gives you more hope to actually think and consider adoption if that's
Mm-hmm.
what God has for you in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and know that either way, babies are resilient. Your past does not define where you are, where you're going to be, or what you develop into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just it's just the power of like the nervous system, how it was designed, and you know we might not be able to control everything, but everything happens for a reason.
Exactly. I love that. That's
Yeah,
very, very true.
yeah.
But thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah,
had so much
absolutely.
fun.
Me too. Me too. We'll have to do it again soon.
Yay!
All right. So stay healthy, stay happy. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.